Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kendra Speed, Walker's Legacy City Director for Austin. I am pleased to serve as your moderator today. Named in honor of Madam C.J. Walker, Walker's Legacy was created with a mission to cultivate an ecosystem of access designed to inspire, equip, and engage a global network of professional and entrepreneurial women of color. You can learn more about Walker's Legacy by joining us online at www.walkerslegacy.com. It is my pleasure today to present to you our Cowork and Connect, a virtual morning chat series, which is aimed to learn the best practices for remote work, the importance of mentoring, staying sharp while staying in, financial planning for small businesses, and self-care routine tips during this time of quarantine and social distancing. So let's get started with today's program. Today's guest is Tia Redman. Tia is a 26-year-old Hampton Roads, Virginia native. She graduated in 2016 with her Bachelor's of Science in Psychology from Virginia Commonwealth University. While currently pursuing her Master's of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, she has founded her first company, Blooming Minds. Blooming Minds serves as a guide for the community by connecting individuals to available mental health resources. On the road to graduation and licensure, Tia uses Blooming Minds as a platform to bring awareness to the mental health field by sharing the knowledge she has gained through her own studies and overall just promoting positivity through blogging and merchandise. On a more personal note, Tia is an outgoing, free-spirited woman who strives to help those in need. Aside from being a mom and running after her busy toddler, she loves spending her time eating and binge watching Netflix while wrapped up in a cozy throw blanket. Please help me in welcoming Tia Redman. As Tia comes on, Tia, I would love for you to share with us your story. Every entrepreneur has a story, so just talk to us a little bit about your journey.
Yes, so again, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. As far as my story, I honestly think about my why, and my why stems from my own experience with mental health. And so to be fully transparent, I have experienced depression. I've experienced postpartum depression. Still, have issues with anxiety today. And I know that during the times where I struggled with it the most, those were the same times where I had no idea how to move forward. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know about resources. And so with that, I know that there are so many people today who are currently having that issue. They don't know what's going on with them. They don't know how to move forward. And so with that, I wanted to be able to pretty much come up with some type of platform where I'm able to help those who are needing help or who are seeking help. With Blooming Minds, that is really what, trying to get my words together, that's really what Blooming Minds is all about. It's about providing these resources to those who need help, providing tips for those who need to learn about what is going on with them. And I know that when it comes to like the hardest times of my life, through support, through therapy, through those same resources, I was able to overcome those worst times of my life. And I want to be able to help others get through their troubling times.
So I'd like to dig in a little deeper here just to understand, how do we get from the kind of passion area of wanting to try this resourcing to you making the decision to step out there and really develop Blooming Minds? Because let's be clear, starting your own business is not for the faint of heart. So I definitely want to give you props for stepping out there to start your business. Just talk me through a little bit more on how you got from idea to really bringing this vision to reality.
Mm-hmm. So it started off with me actually going to school. So I'm currently in grad school, and I'm going for my master's in clinical mental health counseling. Almost done, but with the mental health field, it takes a while to become licensed and provide services. So on this road to graduation and licensure, I was thinking, well, how can I help people now? I know that I can't provide therapy services to anyone because I'm not licensed yet, but I was thinking, how can I reach out to my community? How can I be of service to them now while I'm still waiting to, provide one-on-one services? And so that's how Blooming Minds came about. And then, just kind of brainstorming how I can help. It started with, wanting to throw an event where I could share things that I've learned in school, really surrounding self-care. But COVID hit, so I wasn't able to do that. So then it turned into me just developing an online platform where people are able to join my website. They're able to blog as far as like sharing their own experience, their mental health journey. They are able to learn tips that I share just from my studies or things that I might come across, articles that I might find, I'll share with members. And then, of course, merchandising. My slogan right now for Blooming Minds is invest in your mind and watch it bloom. And honestly, that's just the truth. When you are investing in yourself, the only thing you can do when you do that is continue to grow. So that's pretty much the message that I'm focused on promoting.
Great. So I'm taking notes as I go through because I think there's a lot of great nuggets throughout here. So, you talk about invest in your mind and watch it bloom. Mm-hmm. To me, like just the words and the way that you've constructed it really bring about kind of this visual in my mind and thinking about, what could we really achieve as as you're on this journey to wholeness of mental health. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I heard as you described, so, how do you get from passion to, launching your business is, you had this passion, you were putting together an event, and then 2020 struck with, all of the twists and turns that it brings. And really being able to get out there and be agile with your overall vision and saying, here are some constraints. And what I will say is some might have been challenged by the thought of, hey, I already had this event in mind. I was already planned. We were ready to go. But instead, you were able to kind of pick up that vision and think about how do you pivot and still bring that to life. So tell me a little bit more, like how has it been since launching the business? How have these interactions been? How has the vision differed from reality? And in what ways are you seeing this vision come to life?
Mm-hmm. So I will say that it is still hard because I feel like with anything, you have plans, you make these plans and you start to execute, and then something else comes in and kind of ruins those plans. And so for me, I have to continue to plan. I just try not to let, outside influences get the best of me or discourage me, which is, it can be hard, especially when you're starting out. Again, I'm starting out. This is my first business. It's still trying to get it to a point where I'd like to see it flourishing. But for me, the only way that I'm able to keep going is is simply by looking at little steps that the business is moving up. And so even though I might not have so much engagement here or not really making so many sales, I don't let things like that discourage me. I just let it help me to kind of move on, push forward, and continue to plan so that I'm able to come up with new ideas, execute those, so and then still, I just think about my vision. Like, it's not all about the engagement as far as like social media, but I know as long as I'm able to touch someone, which I know that I have, people will read my blogs. They're reading about anxiety. They're reading about how to cope. So I know that there are people out there who are using my resources or using my website. They're coming in contact with me and they're asking me for my website. They're asking, hey, I know you have resources listed. What's your website? So I know that my vision is going pretty well, even though it doesn't look like it as far as logistics right now. I know for a fact that I'm still touching people out there. So that's really just what makes me keep going.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know the bulk of our conversation today is going to be all about, thankfulness, mindfulness, and, those are words we hear all the time. So if you could just talk me and our audience through what is thankfulness? What is mindfulness? Are they the same thing? Are they something different? Just provide for us a bit of your definitions.
Yeah. So when I think of thankfulness, I instantly just think of, when someone has done something good for you, you're thankful, or you can be thankful for the things that you have in life. Pretty simple. Mindfulness is simply all about self-awareness. And when you think of self-awareness, it's really about being aware of your thoughts, being aware of your feelings, how you might react to certain situations, why you might react. It's almost like you're processing things with yourself, and you're being aware of what is happening. When I think of thankfulness, though, I instantly go to expressing gratitude, which I think is an act or a habit that people should start to learn. I like to emphasize expressing gratitude. It is pretty similar as far as thankfulness, but gratitude is more of an act. So expressing gratitude for me is not just saying, "Oh, I'm thankful for my car," but it's almost like having that intention behind it and thinking about why you're thankful for it, and then practicing being or expressing that gratitude every day, even in the midst of negative events. And it's super hard because we're humans, and anything negative that happens, we tend to kind of sit on it. But I think it's a super good habit to kind of start, where you are able to express gratitude, even though, this bad thing happened, or this situation happened differently than you planned. So that's for, thankfulness and being or showing gratitude. But with mindfulness, that's also another practice that everyone should start to learn about and continue to practice at home, because it's all a part of self-care. Mindfulness is pretty much you being able to create that space for yourself, whether it's in the middle of the day, whether you are meditating, whether you are expressing gratitude, or talking with yourself about the things that you're thankful for. All of those things kind of fall under the same umbrella of self-care for me. But with mindfulness, you're able to create that space for you to think, create that space for you to process your emotions, process how you're feeling. Probably the best time to do it is before you start your day, because it can set the tone for the rest of your day. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process on those two. Thankfulness and gratitude for me kind of go hand in hand.
Thank you. As you were talking through some of the words that come to mind for me, both as we think about thankfulness, as we think about mindfulness, is this intentionality that comes behind that. One thing I want to encourage our audience to do, we're in the spirit of, being thankful. We're in the spirit of gratitude as we think about the season that we're in. If you could drop in the chat, either on YouTube or on Facebook, and let us know, what are some of those things that you're thankful for? And what are some of those intentional habits of gratitude that you're looking forward or already engaging in during this time period? So would love to hear from you in the chat. One thing, Tia, that I'm very interested in is as you talk about mindfulness, you talk about, creating space.
Mhm.
How do we create space? Like, how do I have that intentionality and create the space for being mindful? What are some of your tips, or guidance that you would provide in that space?
hmm So, when again with mindfulness and creating that space, it's all under this umbrella of self care. So, I have pretty simple tips when it comes to self care. For one, as crazy as it might sound, you should plan for it. I mean, like, schedule a time so that you can have that space for yourself, but not just scheduling it, but guarding it. So, you know that this is something that you need. Okay, you've thought about it. Oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow morning, but stick with that and guard that time. Don't let anything, as best as you can, don't let anything interrupt that time. Um, that will honestly kind of set the tone for how you continue to make space. So if you're continuing to schedule that time for yourself, and you are guarding that time for yourself, and you're sticking with it, being consistent, you're able to keep up with this habit, and it'll, set the tone for the rest of your day. So for me, I like to guard a certain time during the morning as best as I can because I have a toddler. But I like to guard a certain time in the morning where I literally just sit. I won't scroll on social media. I might just sit and just kind of talk with myself through the day. Again, talking to yourself is not crazy. You're not crazy for doing it. But I do that. And it honestly sets the tone for the rest of my day. I try not to think about, even though I have so many worries going on, I try not to sit on the negativity. I want to focus on what my plans are. And of course, I'm not ignoring the fact that something could come up, but I won't let that uh, determine whether or not I'm going to have a good or a bad day. But I still schedule that time, and I stick with it. Another thing, as far as self-care and guarding that time, saying no is part of that. I don't know about you, but it is so hard for me to say no sometimes. And when you don't say no, um, you're kind of taking away time from yourself. So if you have a friend that's like, hey, let's go get coffee, but that's it's kind of scheduled during a time where you need that space for yourself. I'm not saying say, oh no, I can't. Like, let's push it out later, but still, like, you want to continue to be consistent so that you can sit with yourself before, going out into the real world. But yeah, those are honestly the two main points. One more thing is that figuring out what works best for you. Everyone else's self-care routine might not work out for you. So you kind of, again, being mindful, you want to sit with yourself and think about, okay, well, what makes me happy? What keeps my spirits up? What should I do in the morning that'll make me feel good and set the tone for the rest of my day? What is something that I know that I can be consistent with, or at least try my best to be consistent with? So those are honestly the three main points as far as like best practices of self-care.
Great. So, okay. So the best practices I got down were to plan for it, to guard your time,
Mhm.
and then also like kind of just customize what works for you.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. I want to call out a couple of comments that we have. Candace is engaging. Candace is in Charlotte, I think Kannapolis, North Carolina. And she says first that she's grateful for a sound mind, healthy relationships, and an able body. So thanks, Candace, for sharing. I encourage others to share. I think those are good things to be grateful for.
Mhm.
In addition, she also had a little note for you. She says that she's also she's a licensed clinical social worker, and she affirms you in this work, and doing it is absolutely necessary. So I think that's great. As a community of women, it's important that we uplift one another and understand that others have are traveling along that road
Yes.
alongside you. So thanks, Candace, for weighing in and sharing here. So there was something you said that personally convicted me. And so you were talking about this saying no. And I'm not trying to turn this into a personal, session. But, that was something that I felt very convicted in. And, it causes my mind to think through, like, when you're reluctant to say no or reluctant to guard some of this time for yourself, what are the things that are then byproducts of failing to say no? Is it resentment? Is it burnout? I feel like there's a litany of things that result there. I don't know whether you have anything that you would, add on to that thought about we need to be able to say no. I think about that as boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you said it. Boundaries is honestly the answer for any question that you might have as far as why should you stick to or be okay with saying no. I'm still learning how to establish my own boundaries, but stick to them. And I think it stems from me just wanting to be of help to the next person. And to be transparent, I think it also, I don't know. I think it might come from me also thinking about my own self in that situation. Like if I was in their shoes, I would want help. But well, I guess it really just depends on what you're saying no to. But yeah, boundaries is it's so hard to kind of establish and stick to when you're that type of person that always wants to do for others and you want to kind of be that person that people go to. But what happens when you are continuing to overextend yourself to these people? You start forgetting about self. How can you take care of yourself when you're always doing for others? Not saying that you shouldn't, but there has to be a balance between the two. And so, yeah, it definitely can result in burnout. You're going to be tired. You might become irritable just because you're like, oh, I got to continue to help them. But it's like, you could say no. So, yeah, boundaries, accepting the fact that the person might feel a way if you say no. But at the end of the day, what's most important? You overextending yourself and you're tired and now you're irritated, or tending to yourself and just giving yourself that space to chill out. And I mean, it's not like you can't help person another day, but that might be the day where you really can't do anything for anyone else, and it's okay. So I definitely posted on my Instagram page about that, and there were a lot of people that were sharing like, I still need to practice this, and I'm like, trusting me too, because I always want to be able to overextend and help, but it does get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm doing too much, and I need to sit down, and I need to just relax, and that's okay. That's just overall the thing that people should understand. It's perfectly fine.
Thank you. As I reflect back on the three things that you mentioned as it relates to kind of like, being intentional about mindfulness, I wonder, as those who are watching in either live or on the playback on YouTube and Facebook, what are some of the things that you do to be intentional about, mindfulness and self-care? What are some of the things around your plan? What are some of the actions that you take to really guard that time for yourself? And then how do you think about the choices that you've made for that self-care time versus what you've heard others? Like what have you found that works for you? Be great if you could share that with us. I think it would just be interesting for us to learn what you're doing in that space. Tia, one thing, that we know is that we are in this season of Thanksgiving. We're entering into the holiday season, and in most, every year it can be a challenging time for individuals. This year, is probably an incremental challenge as we think about, people remaining connected, as we think about, mental health challenges during this time.
Mhm.
What would you, tell people who have, suffered great loss during 2020 and may be finding it hard to be thankful? What
Mhm.
type of guidance would you provide?
For one, I want to say that you are not alone in this. And even with the great loss that anyone has experienced, there are so many resources and just support overall that is available. And I want anyone who is truly struggling, especially with the holidays coming up, to reach out for that extra support that they need. There's nothing wrong with needing extra support to begin to at least feel some type of positivity in your life. And that's even in the midst of this crazy year. So, yes, you aren't alone, and there are so many resources available where you are able to use that can help you get to, or at least start to feel better. Um, yeah, that's the main thing that I have to share for anyone that's having any or that's struggling.
And so, are some of those resources included on the Blooming Minds site? Like, where are some good kind of go-to places just as a starting point
Mhm.
as we think about, really, really being able to bolster ourselves during this time?
Yeah, so on Blooming Minds website, and I don't know if I'm able, it's kind of long, so I am able to share it. But on the Blooming Minds website, I do have a resource page that has resources for, and it's for national companies, but they have helplines or like crisis hotlines that people are able to either text or call in when they are having or when they're struggling during certain moments, or even if it's just like something like an anxiety attack, you're able to use that resource to at least have some immediate relief. I will actually be posting a resource where people are able to use that to find therapy services in their area. So it's as simple as being able to type in the area that they're in, insurance that they may have, so that they can find any available resources that are closest to them. I do have that. They also have, I have blogs on my website as well, where I kind of address anxiety as well as depression. How to cope with worrying thoughts. So those type of resources or activities that I have up there can help with anyone during this time.
I also wonder whether you have some thoughts of like practical ways that, or things that you've seen that people are remaining connected in a world of, social distancing. Like, what are some of the things that maybe we can think of as it relates to engaging to people, even while it might not be in a physical setting?
Hmm. Okay. So honestly, I just think about if you put yourself in someone else's shoes, if you know what their situation is, it can go a long way if you are simply reaching out through phone call, through text message, through social media, and just letting them know, hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, invite them out, or hopefully there's not like a big crowd, because I know people are still getting together during COVID, but just try to reach out to people that are having a hard time, and just have a conversation, because that alone can seriously go a long way for that other person. I know for me, if I was in that position, and during this time where people are starting to feel alone, I would love it if I had someone that would reach out and just have a conversation, or is just checking in on me, because it just kind of gets rid of that. Maybe not for the long term, but in that moment, you're able to feel like, hey, someone cares, someone is thinking about me, someone is reaching out. So yeah, during this time with social distancing, just feel free to reach out to those, especially if you know that they're having a hard time.
Thanks.
Mhm.
One of the things, I asked the question earlier, and Candace has come back with a couple of number things as thoughts of how to kind of, promote and be intentional about self-care. And so, just going through a couple of things that she said was like, don't overschedule.
Mhm.
She doesn't expect perfectionism from herself. I think that's good. Giving yourself permission not to people please to my detriment. And I like that addition of to my detriment, like powerful. And then fourth, don't confuse people's expectations of her with her own personal goals, values, and priorities.
That's a good
Wow. Yeah, I think that's also remaining like focused
one.
on those things that you see that you've kind of said are your personal values and not letting others kind of deter that.
Yeah.
So super interesting. Okay, so the next thing is I would love if you can spend some time talking just a bit more about what are the benefits of thankfulness, of mindfulness.
Mhm. Um, I think they both have the same benefit, which is you're learning how to um, at least try to maintain like a positive perspective on life, even though negative things still happen. They're always going to happen because life just has a funny way of doing things, but you don't let that discourage you. You don't let that keep you down. You're learning how to cope with negative situations. You're learning how to not allow negative things to make your day. If you're late for work, you don't let that set the tone for the rest of your day. I'm a firm believer in, when you're putting out negative, you're attracting more negative, or when you are putting out positive, you attract more positivity. So I'm not here to say that this is going to be easy as pie and it's an overnight thing that can just turn your life around. It definitely takes practice, but the whole purpose is that when you are in the midst of negativity, you are able, or you have these tools that can help you, um, pretty much help you have a more positive perspective on it. And you're able to sit on it. You're able to analyze how you're feeling. You're able to process what's going on, why this happened, why you're reacting this way, why you're feeling this way towards it. And then you're able to make a plan and move on. So that's pretty much the benefit, just being able to allow or feel more positivity in your life, even though there may be some negative things going on as well.
Tia, one thing I heard you saying, there were a couple words that I would like underline. You talked about learning,
Mhm.
practice, and having kind of like these tools and it's not always going to be easy as pie.
Mhm.
And for me, I think that's something important to amplify is as we think about mindfulness, as we think about thankfulness, self-care, that is not just one of these things where it's like, okay, got it, like I'm totally there.
Mhm.
It really sounds like it's this ongoing process. I can even imagine that it might be one of these things of where, yeah, you've learned some of these tools, and sometimes we fall back, like, we regress a bit on this. And so love the idea around, or the concept
Mhm.
around that, this is an ongoing learning process,
Mhm.
and that we kind of have to put the tools into practice, figure out what works for us, and
Definitely.
be intentional about the use of them.
Mhm. Definitely. I even for me, I mean, like I said, I make plans to sit in the morning with myself before I start my day, and I'm telling you, my toddler will just tell me, no, that's not what's going to happen today. So, but something like that, especially as a mom, you might feel like, oh gosh, okay, you're super busy. Now I can't have time for myself. And I might let that, set the tone for the rest of my day. And I just might be irritated for the rest of the day. But I think when it comes to mindfulness and thinking of different ways to adjust, I just kind of use those tools so that I'm like, okay, let me think of something else. I'll take him to daycare, and then I'll come back and try to restart my morning so that I'm not feeling flustered or overwhelmed because of how busy he was, because that's nothing that I can change. He's a toddler. But also, even if you do start to feel irritated, accept it. Like, there's nothing wrong. Again, we're human. So I never want to sit here and make it seem like every day you're going to wake up and feel super cheery and you're going to have the most perfect day as long as you do this, 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 and this. But then life comes in. So now what? So, it's okay when things don't go your way, but how are you going to move on from it? How are you going to continue to push forward? Are you going to sit on it? Are you going to just kind of think about all the negativity? Think of different ways that can keep your spirits up, pretty much.
I go back to thinking about ways of showing gratitude. And, one, I'm interested in what others might be doing as you think about kind of like these alternative celebrations of the holidays and how are they remaining connected to others.
Mm-hmm.
I know one thing that we're doing in our family is we have a couple of Zoom interactions planned for tomorrow. I think one is dessert and another is some other time. Maybe we're all eating dinner. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that my 3-person household is connecting with other family in different parts of this nation. I think things like that are important too. Like ways of finding normalcy or connection in very abnormal times, right? I also think about, demonstration of gratitude, reaching out to most vulnerable communities in a safe way.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be going downtown Austin under the bridge and demonstrating gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
of having the ability to reach out, to be able to provide, to be able to connect to those who might not be getting the connection, I think is important as well. Of course, while doing all of this in a way that is safe and that is respectful to, the different safety practices that you're committed to during this time. I feel like there is such a focus on what we've lost this year, and there's degrees of this. Like I lost being able to go into an office every day, all the way to I've lost several family and friends during the course of the year. And acknowledging that, and then also putting focus on those things that we still have, and expressing, thankfulness and gratitude for that. So, interested in any thoughts you have as it relates to that.
Yeah, I know for me this year, of course, starting out, everyone is just like, oh no, like we can't do anything. We're locked in the house. And of course, with jobs being impacted, financial situations being impacted, everyone was impacted in some kind of way. I think for me, I'm most grateful for this season in a very weird way, but I am grateful because I actually had the time to sit more with myself, get to this point where I'm thinking more about myself, and it's not that I didn't before, but of course life was continuing on, and there was nothing to kind of force you to pause and just stop. And so, and I don't know, other people might have had the same experience, but you were literally forced to sit alone with yourself and learn. You had time to you know participate in any hobbies that you were interested in, or even start a new hobby. You had to, I know a lot of people started therapy since quarantine started, and they said that it was the best thing for them because one, they were already forced to sit with themselves, but then when they started therapy, they started to learn more and more about themselves, about all kinds of things, and learn how to cope. And, so I think this was a season for everyone. They all had that, or we all had that opportunity to kind of be alone and learn things about ourselves. And I know I definitely did. And then this is how Blooming Minds, everything that Blooming Minds has going on right now, it kind of stemmed from that, just being able to pause and focus on this alone. If I was working, I probably wouldn't be like right here. I'd probably still have little notes written down in my planner about what I'd like to do, but I wouldn't have executed because of everything else going on. So I'm super grateful for having this opportunity, and just being able to, or I think that I'm actually at a place now where I know the things that keep my spirits up and the things that I'd like to continue to do. And I have that space to create different plans in the event that something else comes in, just like how my first event that I planned got canceled. I think of all these other things that I'd like to do. And so still being able to have that space, I'm super grateful for.
Great. Thank you. Super excited to have had you on today. I'm learning, a lot. I want to pause to see if, there are any questions or comments from our live chat for Tia. So I know we'll pause for a moment to allow any of those to come in. I did want to share some of the things that came to mind for me as you were talking. I went back to how you were speaking about, it's okay to talk to yourself. Then it caused me to start thinking about it's okay to, talk to yourself. And it's probably okay to listen as well. As you talked about, having time to just be with yourself. So, talking, listening, and adapting based upon that. So, for me, it sounds like this constant theme of learning and growth and exploration. And it's like, how do you get to the place of being comfortable and being skilled at doing that?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I know one thing. When it comes to exploration, my mind instantly goes to healing. And healing can be the scariest thing because, again, your mind is set like, this is how I am, and that's just what it is. But then you start to learn, I don't know, this might be a problem. Like, why am I like this? Why do I react this way to certain things or certain people? And you end up digging deeper and you start to realize, connect pieces like, oh, because this happened, this is why I'm reacting now. It's like a domino effect. There's a reason for everything when it comes to our healing and our growth. And so I will say it can be scary. And I also will say that having extra support to help you with the exploration isn't a problem either. One thing I do want to address is that a lot of people think that you have to have a serious mental illness to receive help. That's not the case at all. The first time that I went to therapy, of course, I didn't know what was happening, but I just knew that I was having issues in college and undergrad as far as being able to keep up with things. And I decided to try therapy. And from then, I certain things were just coming to surface, and I was just like, hold on, how did we get here? But it was just all a part of that exploration process. You really will find out things about yourself that you had no idea were even related. And so I say that all to say is that, if you need that extra support, reach out and get it, because there's nothing wrong with needing that extra jump to get to a point where you're able to address certain things about yourself and accept certain things about yourself.
Great. Well, thank you. I didn't see any additional questions or comments come in on the chat. Tia, I want to say it's been great. Having you share with us, learning more about you and Blooming Minds. Super excited with this as your only first company, and all of the great things that you're continuing to do with this platform. How can we stay in touch with you?
Yes, so you can stay in touch or reach out for anything, even just to say hi, on Instagram. Am I able to type that in, or?
Well, you can tell us, and then we can always come back and include it in the comments.
Cool. So my Instagram is the @ and it's Blooming Minds VA. And on Facebook, it's Blooming Minds LLC. And then on Instagram and Facebook, you're able to go to the About section, and there is the link to my website. It's super, super long, so I didn't want to spell it out for you on here, but you're easily able to access it in the bio section of my Instagram page and Facebook. And that's Blooming Minds VA, like Virginia.
Okay, we'll get that in there correctly. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tia. And Walker's Legacy programming looks to bring everyone insightful, meaningful opportunities for conversation and community. And we hope that you found that today during this special Hangout opportunity. We hope to continue to see you at our weekly Cowork and Connect series, which occur every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And look out for events that are happening in your city. So what we'll say is, please visit www.walkerslegacy.com for the latest and greatest on activities. And importantly, have a great day and a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.